November 6th meeting of Morristown City Council to order. We welcome those of you who are in attendance today. We'll begin with an invocation followed by the pledge to the flag. The invocation today from Dr. Gary Brewster, who is a Morristown Police Department chaplain and also the Executive Director of the Ministerial Association, Ministerial Area Temporary Shelter known as MATS. Gary?
Yes, thank you. I want to just take a moment and say thank you also to all of our city council for allowing us to come in and pray this way. I appreciate that very much. Let's bow our heads and let's pray. Lord, as we enter into this Thanksgiving season, we want our hearts to be constantly filled with gratitude. And Lord, we recognize that you're our Heavenly Father, and first and foremost, we are thankful that you have enabled a way that we can come into relationship with you. Lord, I want to thank you for every council member that is up here, for Mr. Cox and for Gary Chesney. And Lord, I pray that you would be with them. Lord, I ask that you would give them wisdom. Lord, I pray that they would be able to go beyond their own understanding and that they would be able to hear your voice with the different decisions that they make. Lord, I also want to thank you for others that have been appointed around this city that provide such awesome leadership. Lord, we also want to take a moment too and ask that your will would be done in the polls today as people get out and as they vote. Lord, we say that this is your country, that this is your area. And Lord, we want to be able to see your will done here. We pray these things in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council members, let's check in. All present with the exception of Mr. Garrett, who is traveling out of the country today, so we'll miss him. We have the minutes of the October 16th meeting. If there are no corrections, I would entertain a motion of approval.
Motion approved.
Motion, Alice, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Ken Smith, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and those minutes are adopted. We have one proclamation today. I'll just call attention to it without the lengthy reading on this one. Small Business Saturday. The proclamation follows Thanksgiving and that weekend. City Council has always been a supporter of small business and of Small Business Saturday. So we have this proclamation before us in which we will enter, and I know that it's important for us to be declared a small business community, and that is before you on the agenda. Requires no vote, and does this present to anyone in particular or to the Crossroads downtown?
We need to Crossroads,
Okay.
and I just need to get a copy of it so I can give it to
Okay,
you.
Barbara, this is coming your way.
Great, thank you.
All right. We have any comments? We'll open the floor for citizen comments about items that are on the agenda. These are for agenda items only. We have a portion of the meeting that is open for discussion under our public hearing portion, of which we have 3 of those today, and also any topic, kind of a miscellaneous topic at the end of the agenda. This is for agenda items. Anyone wish to be heard, you have 3 minutes. Please identify yourself by name and address. The floor is now open. Hearing none, we'll close this portion of the meeting and we'll move to the public hearing portion. The first is for ordinance number 3619. This is our second reading public hearing on the ordinance to amend the municipal code of the city of Morristown, Appendix B, the rezoning of Hamlin County tax parcel ID number, which you see currently addressed 2323 East Morris Boulevard. That is from heavy industrial to intermediate business. The floor is now open. Laura?
Yes, sir, City Council, our first reading on this rezoning request from Store Master Funding 2 for their property of 2323 East Morris Boulevard, located just west of Pond Drive near the College Square Mall. 2-acre property was home to the now closed Sagebrush Restaurant, which is zoned HI, or heavy industrial. As trends in manufacturing went into rapid decline, thankfully many of the 18 or so industrial zone properties in this area were not empty or vacant for long, but rather they've been converted to commercial and professional office uses. The property owner sees this trend continuing, hence the request to be rezoned from industrial to IB. The Planning Commission voted to forward this request on to City Council for approval at their regular meeting of October 9th. As the city's future land use plan shows this corridor transitioning to commercial, and request is consistent with surrounding properties. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on this particular ordinance? Any council members have questions for Lori? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing portion, and I would entertain a motion that this ordinance be adopted. Motion Smith. A second, we do have a second. Any other discussion or questions? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And that ordinance is approved. Our second public hearing today is ordinance number 3620, an ordinance to amend the municipal code of the city of Morristown, Appendix B. It rezones the Hamlin County tax parcel ID number you see before you. It is addressed 2518 and 2520 West Andrew Johnson Highway. It is from single family residential to intermediate business, and the floor is now open.
Yes, sir. This one item also the City Council heard first reading for property owned by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Knoxville. They've asked that the St. Patrick's Church and Parish located at 2518 and 2520 West Andrew Johnson Highway be rezoned from their current designation of R1 to intermediate business. Properties east and west of the site are commercially zoned and utilized, such as Lowe's, Applebee's, and Massonville Springs development. Properties south of the church are predominantly zoned and used for businesses, with several residential houses having been converted to office use. The 6-acre church site has been zoned R1 or residential since at least 1976, and more than likely since it was annexed into the city. The Planning Commission, again at their October meeting, based its decision to forward the request on to City Council because of the consistency of the request for the city's future land use plan and consistency with surrounding property uses.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on this ordinance? Hearing none, we will entertain a motion that this be adopted as the public hearing is closed.
Move for adoption.
Motion centered. Is there a second? We have second Powell. Is there any discussion or questions by the council? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And that ordinance is approved. Our third public hearing is ordinance number 3621, an ordinance to amend the municipal city code of the city of Morristown, Appendix B. You see the tax parcel ID in front of you as an address of 1294 Old Whit Road, from single-family residential to intermediate business. The general location being shown is on the attached exhibit, which is lettered Exhibit A.
Yes, sir. As you just noted, this is a request from property owner Robert Parvin of 1294 Old Whit Road to rezone his property from single-family residential or R1 designation to intermediate business district IB. The owner states that when his property was annexed with the R1 zoning designation, it made the existing office retail use on the site non-conforming, and this rezoning will bring, this building and use into conformance. The property as a whole is slightly over 4/5 of an acre. It does contain, as I just noted, this office retail building on the site. The properties to the north and east are zoned by the county as agriculture. The property to the north contains Rains Manor, which is a weddings event venue, and the property to the east is a single-family house with a farm. The properties to the southwest are primarily residential. However, there are intermediate business zone properties to the south and southwest, including storage units directly across the street from this picture. This rezoning request from R1 to IB will bring, I've said this already, this office retail use onto this property into conformance, and it is also compatible with the surrounding zoning and the surrounding land uses. And at the October meeting, Planning Commission did vote 7-0 in support of this request.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to be heard on this ordinance? Council, I skipped our comments until we actually have a motion before us. We have that opportunity, but if anybody wants to speak before that, there's nothing preventing. If not, we'll close the public hearing, and I would entertain a motion to adopt.
Move for adoption.
Motion Center. Do we have a second? We do have a second. Any questions or discussion from the council? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And it is approved. Under resolutions, we have a couple of those. The first is resolution number
20-18.
Resolution 20-18 is to authorize cooperative purchasing agreements for the use and benefit of all city departments.
The state law lays out an option for localities to join into purchasing cooperatives in order to band together and get better prices for materials. And in that authorizing legislation, there's a requirement for resolution. That's the reason this resolution is before you tonight. We recommend approval.
Do we have a motion to the recommendation?
So moved.
Motion Pettigo. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any discussion on this one or questions? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is resolution
21-18.
21-18 is a resolution that authorizes the issuance of general obligation refunding bonds of the city of Morristown in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $15,500,000 in one or more series, making provision for the issuance, sale, and payment of said bonds, establishing the terms thereof, and the disposition of proceeds therefore, and providing for the levy of taxes for the payment of principal of premium, if any, and interest on the bonds.
This resolution comes to you by request from the Morristown Utility Systems. It is their intent to consider refunding some sewer bonds that are outstanding. We discussed this at some length in the pre-meeting meeting, but Mr. Bessler is here if you have any additional questions.
Do we have a motion to this, adopt this resolution?
Motion to approve.
Motion Alvis. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Any questions or discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to ask that the minutes reflect that this is a bond for the Marston Utility System.
Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, we ready to vote? Let's vote. And that motion carries. We have one ordinance proposal before us on first reading. That would be ordinance number
3622.
3622 is an ordinance of the city of Morristown amending Title 14, the zoning and land use control, Chapter 11, in the central business district of the Morristown Municipal Code.
This is the text amendment we discussed at the workshop 2 weeks ago. I'm not going to force you to see that PowerPoint again, so I'll just kind of go over the highlights of it. This is part of our ongoing effort to update our zoning code, and we're in the process of updating the central business district. To begin this process, staff held a community meeting downtown at the Venture Place, where we invited downtown property owners, invited the public, the commission, the councilors, and that was on August 23rd. And we were pleased. We had about 25 people come, and we met for approximately 2.5 hours, and we discussed the central business district and what their vision for the downtown was. In this process, what we kind of concluded is that the central business district is really made up of two distinct building types. You have the area along East Main Street and North and South Cumberland, which are very urban, pedestrian-oriented businesses, multi-story buildings. And then you have the areas along Morris, which is kind of south of the railroad tracks, which is very suburban, where the buildings are set back, surrounded by parking, one-story, very suburban type buildings. So the conclusion of the committee was that we need to have a separate set of standards for the buildings that were along that urban corridor along Main Street. And what we concluded, if you look at this map, we had a kind of set up an overlay that would run from Jackson to James Street, along Main Street, and it would run north along North Street, and the southern boundary would be along the railroad tracks. And in that, like I said, we characterize it as a very urban district, in that we were proposing to amend the regulations to require buildings to be set up close to the street, no more than 5 feet. Also, to match the context and character of the buildings, that the building had to be minimum 2 to 5, or minimum of 2 stories, with a maximum of 45 feet. That's because it's important that any redevelopment or development along that corridor should be consistent with what's there. In addition, we looked at the facades of those buildings along that corridor, and historically, they have been primarily glass, in that very pedestrian oriented, where people could walk, look into the stores, see the products, or if there was a restaurant, they could be sitting there and watch the public go by. We did a survey of the storefronts and found that on average, it was 65% glass on the ground floor level, and we're proposing in this corridor, anything on the ground floor along this corridor would have a maximum or minimum of 60% glass. That would be in the doors, the windows, transom windows, just to continue with what's along that corridor. Anything outside that corridor, the existing standards would remain in place. We also proposing that any new buildings that are constructed that perhaps or redeveloped that are along the Sky Mart, that they would have a second story entrance, so that is part of the Sky Mart store frontage. During this discussion, we also looked at land uses along the corridor. One thing we did was we did update the zoning district to include definitions that are similar to what we did in the other commercial districts, where we combined all the office type uses, doctor, medical, lawyers, under one definition of professional, business, and governmental uses, and all the types of retail uses, combine them to just retail establishments. But as part of the process, we also looked at take out certain uses they didn't feel were appropriate along this corridor. Adult-oriented businesses, methadone and pain clinics, they felt wasn't appropriate in this downtown area, so we're proposing to take them out. Also, automobile-oriented type uses, truck terminals, used and new car lots, auto detailing and car washes. Felt this wasn't really appropriate in this corridor, so we're recommending to remove them from the central business district, as well as mini storage rental units. On September 20th, the Crossroads Partnership Board of Directors did endorse the proposed changes, and the Planning Commission at its October 9th meeting also voted unanimously to approve these proposed amendments, and with that, staff would recommend approval.
Do we have a motion to that recommendation that we adopt this ordinance on first reading? So moved. Motion Smith, do we have a second? We do have a second. Any questions of Steve?
Steve, refresh my memory on the going up toward James Street where we had existing automobile
Yes.
places now. You restated, you said if they go out of business for how long?
Well, under state law, it's 30 months. If the business is in operation, they have up to 30 months to reestablish that use before it loses its grandfathered status.
Any other questions? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. That ordinance is approved on first reading, and it will be set for a public hearing on November the 20th. We have the awarding of bids and contracts. We're going to spend money about 13 different times here, so hang on. The first one is the acceptance of the Tennessee Department of Transportation Aeronautics Division Airport Grant for tree removal obstruction along the railroad in the amount of $97,000. The funding there is $52,150 from the state, $40,000 from federal. Our local share is $4,850.
This is a grant, as you indicated, coming from the state Department of Transportation for improvement of safety at our airport. It removes trees that are potentially in the way of the approach of planes coming into land. Council will recall that we had a similar project a few years ago, and the funds weren't adequate to take care of the entire problem. This grant will allow us to address the majority of the problem and make the airport a much safer and more compliant with federal guidelines. This recommendation has been looked at by the Airport Commission and comes to you as a recommendation for approval.
Do we have a motion to accept that recommendation?
Move for approval.
Motion is centered. And we have a second. Any questions on this one?
Tony, do you know, are they going to grind those stumps so that you don't have those shoots that come up again, or what are they going to do?
I'll refer to Mr. Barnes.
That's discussions that Michael Baker, who's our engineer on that, are in discussions to grind the stumps as well as wood chip the trees.
Otherwise, we'll be doing this again.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other? We ready to vote? Let's vote. And that motion carried. Second is the acceptance of the Tennessee Department of Transportation Aeronautics Division Airport Grant for security fencing along the railroad in the amount of $85,000. Again, the breakdown is $4,250 from the state, $76,500 from the feds, and $4,250 is the local share.
This goes hand in hand with the grant you just accepted. As we remove the trees, we need to secure the perimeter. That's the purpose of this grant. It has been reviewed by the Airport Commission. They recommend approval.
Do we have a motion to that recommendation?
Motion approved.
Motion Alvis. And we have a second. Any questions on this one? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the approval of a license agreement between the City of Morristown and Tuftork Corporation, granting a license to enter onto and use the city's property located at the Morristown Regional Airport for the purpose of testing transmissions.
This is, again, something that's come to the Airport Commission for review. They considered the idea of supporting one of our local industries. They needed a significant flat area to do some testing. It's not very frequent. It will not interfere with operations. They recommend approval.
We have a motion to that recommendation. Motion Bivens. And we have a second. Any questions from the council? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the approval of the Morristown Airport Building Site Hangar Lease Agreement between the City of Morristown and T. Philip Carlisle.
Airport Commission has been in negotiations with Mr. Carlisle for the construction of a new commercial hangar. The agreement before you has been approved by them and recommend approval.
Do we have a motion to that recommendation?
Motion approved.
Motion Alvis. Is there a second? We have a second. Any questions on this one?
What's the location of it, Joey, roughly?
It's in between the existing Jenkins hangar. As you enter on gate 4, directly across from the Baptist Church there, you've got Jenkins hangar, and then you have Henderson's hangar. It'd be located in between those two hangars.
And we're about ready to build. Is that?
Yes.
Anyone else?
It's a 25-year agreement.
25-year ground lease. At the end of the 25 years, the facility becomes the property of the city.
Does it have to be in good condition when they turn it back over to us?
The first, Joe.
Yeah,
We hope so.
There's no phrase normal wear and tear.
Yes.
Anyone else? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the approval of services agreement with Geo Services for the construction materials testing services at the Public Works compound in the not to exceed amount of $50,000.
This is a contract with Geo Services, as you indicated, to test materials such as concrete and so forth going into the construction of the facility to make sure we're getting what we paid for, that the material is appropriate. It's a good investment in making sure that the long-term life of the facility is what we want. We'd recommend approval.
Is there a motion to that recommendation?
So moved.
Motion Smith, do we have a second? We have a second. Any questions on this one?
Tony, something like this, is there somebody on site all the time, or are they notified when they're fixing to do a concrete pour or something like that?
Yeah, they're on site when there's something significant, but they're not there when there's nothing needed.
So this is for the life of the project?
Well, I mean, during the construction, they'll be out there watching materials as they go in. So there are significant portions of time where they're doing footers or they're pouring slabs or other types of things where they test to make sure the materials are what we paid for.
Anyone else? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the approval of the agreement between the City of Morristown and Sourcewell.
Previously in this meeting, you passed a resolution allowing us to enter into agreements for purchasing cooperatives. Sourcewell is one of those purchasing cooperatives. Before you is the contract between the city and Sourcewell to join into their organization. We would recommend approval.
Is there a motion to that recommendation?
Motion approved.
Motion Alvis. Need a second. Got a second. Any questions? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the approval to accept the best and lowest bid submitted by Worldwide Equipment for a knuckle boom truck with the PAC-MAC body. It is staff's recommendation to go with the Kenworth chassis in the amount of $138,099.
If you look at the bid tab in your package, you'll note that the Kenworth chassis is not the lowest bid. However, in order to be compatible with the rest of our fleet, be compatible with our maintenance system, we recommend that you pay a little bit more to get the compatible equipment, and we recommend approval of the Kenworth product.
Is there a motion to that recommendation?
Start with.
Motion Bivens. Do we have a second? We have a second. Any questions or discussion on this one? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. Next is the approval of a change order. That would be change order number 4 for fire station number 4.
I apologize that we didn't have this material to go into your package. The information is available here at the desk for you. This is the change order at the new Station 4 to address some concerns about maintenance of a pond on the site. This is a relatively minor fix, and it involves some standing drain pipes, some stone and so forth. It is something we need to do for the facility. We'd recommend approval.
Is there a motion on the recommendation?
Move for approval.
Motion centered. We have a second. We do have a second. Any questions or discussion on this one?
Is this a holding pond?
It used to be a pond actually on the pasture area, and this will allow it to be a detention pond and get the water out.
So it will drain eventually, or?
Yes, it will drain.
And where will it drain? Into the storm drain back at the street?
Back into the ground.
Just into the
The
ground?
ground allows it to absorb through.
How long will that take? I mean, is there gonna,
It won't overflow.
there's no opening to go through, it'll just have to go into the ground, is what you're
Correct.
saying?
Well, there's a standpipe that would go down through the standpipe to the underground reservoir.
That's what I would think.
Any other questions? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion is approved. Next is the approval of a request for proposal, or RFP, for athletic team picture rights submitted by Gail E. Meeker Photography LLC to allow the city administrator to enter into contract negotiations.
We do this on a regular basis to make sure we have an ability for our teams to get photographed. We went out, we had one responsive bidder. We do think we've got a opportunity for a good product here, and we'd recommend approval to enter into the contract phase. Craig is here if you have any questions about the service and is what we're trying to accomplish.
Do we have a motion to that recommendation?
So moved.
Motion Alvis. Is there a second? Need a second. Got it. Any questions on this one? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion is approved. Next is the approval of the purchase of bathroom for Heritage Park. Is to be funded with CDBG funds and purchased from CXT Incorporated via Sourcewell, a cooperative purchasing agreement.
Again, this material is available for your review at the desk, the purchase order for the equipment. This is a bathroom like we have in some of the other park facilities. CXT has been the vendor for those facilities. They've worked out well for us in terms of the design and the color and so forth, the fit and fixture. We've been working with their design team of Wilson Associates. We'd recommend approval.
Do we have a motion to that recommendation?
So moved.
Motion Smith. We have a second. Any questions on this one? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion is approved. Next is the approval of the purchase of one 2019 Dodge Durango SXT for the Morristown Police Department from TT of Columbia State Contract, the amount of $30,878.59.
As you indicated, this is a purchase from state contract. It's for the police department. It is a budgeted item. We recommend approval.
Is there a motion for the recommendation?
Motion approved.
Motion Alvis. We have a second. We have a second. Any questions or discussion on this one? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion carries. And next is the approval of the purchase of 9 2019 Dodge Chargers for the Morristown Police Department from TT of Columbia State Contract in the amount of $287,418.24.
Again, as you indicated, this is a purchase from state contract for police cruisers. Originally in the budget, we had allocated funds that we thought would purchase 8. When we got the prices, we feel like we can stretch it to 9. That will allow us to address some of the concerns we've had about the loss of fleet from some problems we have with accidents. So we recommend the purchase of 9 cruisers for the amount stated.
Is there a motion to this recommendation?
So moved.
Motion Smith. We have a second. Any questions or discussion on this one? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion is approved. Next is the approval of the purchase for crash data retrieval software for the Morristown Police Department from Crash Data Group Incorporated, that is a sole source provider. The amount is $9,862.
This is a grant program that you previously approved for the police department to get this equipment. It is for active investigation. Chief Overholt is here if you have any questions about the recollections of the efforts we've been doing to manage this grant. We would recommend approval.
Is there a motion to this recommendation?
Motion approved.
Motion Alvis. Is there a second? Still need a second. Got it? Any discussion or questions on this one? Hearing none, let's vote. And that motion is approved. Well, we didn't spend 13 different items, but, so we got off lighter than I thought. We have new issues. One is before us is the council consideration. We have Christmas holiday schedule coming up. We think it's too early to put up Christmas decorations, but it's not too early to talk about the holiday schedule.
Needs to take a Walmart there.
They will listen to it. Tony, you want to guide us through this one?
In years past, council has considered some additions to the Christmas holidays in order to plan, in particular for our public safety folks who have to cover 24/7 schedules. It's very beneficial to be able to have an adequate time to plan for it. So that's the reason the issue is before you tonight.
In the past, what we have done is Christmas Day, it's on a weekend, we give a Friday off, and sometimes during the week, we give the day before Christmas off. This time, Christmas is on a Tuesday, which would make Monday the off time, which would mean from Friday night until Wednesday morning. Does the council want to go that route, or?
Yes. Yeah, I'll put that in form of a motion.
Do we want to put any stipulation there on needing to be present on Friday for that?
We haven't had to in the past.
Is that a no?
Is that, ask Tony's advice on that.
Is that something that can be implemented without going to council approval to enforce that?
Yeah, I think we can have reasonable review of that.
Okay. All right, is there a second?
Second,
Second, Alvis?
do I need to do that on the board?
Do we have any type of regulation about the percentage of employees who can be out on a day?
No, I mean, it certainly with regard to those critical services that go 24/7, we do staff according to the demands we anticipate. So New Year's Eve, for example, there's a lot more people than other times. And other folks will just respond on an as-needed basis.
Any other questions? Are we ready to vote? Let's vote. And that is approved. Under new issues, it doesn't require a vote, and this is before we do the communications from the floor of the city administrator's report. I'd ask council information, Chief Honeycutt. Chief, you might, and this concerns the email you had sent about your labor force shortages and what the requirements you have to operate under. I wondered if you might share that with the council.
On the personnel, we have a staffing minimum of 21 per shift. We currently have 20, the two new hires, we have 25 assigned on 2 of the 3 shifts, 26 assigned on the 3rd. So 21 minimum staffing, and the issues that I wrote you about, we've had 2 to resign, so we have 2 vacancies, which is going to up the overtime budget to maintain the 21 in order to accommodate scheduled vacations and other events. So we're 2 short currently with the 2 resignations 2 weeks ago. We're getting 2 in from the recruit school, which still leaves us those 2 vacancies. So we're short 1 person per 2 of the 3 shifts.
And the speed that, there were some restrictions on how quickly you can be able to fill those spots. That was the concern that I wanted the council to know about.
Okay, sir. Currently, we believe that there will be a springtime recruit class, which would begin actually in the 2nd week of February 2019. We're currently in the process this month of formulating a new recruit roster to hire from. We would anticipate that roster being completed by the end of December. I would appear before this body and ask you to appoint 2 new recruits in the January timeframe, 1st, 2nd week of January, allowing them to turn in a 2-week notice at their current employer, come to work for the city with the intent of time to have a physical by the city physician, which they must pass, even if they've been appointed. It all hinges on the physical exam by the doctor. So we'd have to do that, get their uniforms ordered, the personal protection equipment ordered, and get them in school by the 2nd week of February. So we're going to be short those 2 positions until we can hire them in January, send them to a 14-week course in February, get them back in the middle of May. So we're looking at until the middle of May before we can potentially have those positions filled.
Okay.
So there's nothing that council can do to speed up the process. You were just notifying us that there's going to be overtime involved.
Correct.
Is that
There's
right?
nothing we can do short of when we do when the new roster is put together. If there was to be a recruit that already meets the criteria, such as the 240 hours of structural firefighting pre-training, if there was to be someone there who finished in the top 5, because we're gonna hire 2, you must be in the top 5. And it was someone we felt would be a good addition. We could forego the February through May.
But they still have to pass the physical and then.
That's correct, sir, yes, sir.
But it's the creation of the roster per civil service guidelines is the challenge.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And if you hang, I guess you'd be around afterwards, and I appreciate you coming up in the middle of this. I gave you very short notice to come to the pre-council work session, and that's my fault. I apologize, I appreciate you overlooking that.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
City Administrator's report, Tony?
Just want to point out that we've had a string of challenging times with regard to our traffic signal maintenance. We've had a couple of back-to-back accidents that required some very lengthy repairs, and then we seem to have some power outages that have plagued us as well. During that entire time, our crews have responded very well. In particular, Mr. Steve Peoples and Matthew Manning, our primary point people for traffic signal maintenance, have done an outstanding job, and I really do want to recognize them for their efforts. Also, I want to commend Paul and Public Works for being prepared to respond to these incidents. You remember they put together the trailer with the equipment on it, ready to roll to respond with the things that we'll need in the field, and that's clearly shown to be beneficial. So we don't like to be challenged in the way we have been, but we're glad that our people are able to respond. And again, I want to very much thank Steve and Matthew for their efforts in these challenging times. Just in the way of kind of talking about the rest of the evening, the council will sit as the beer board immediately following this meeting. And then after that, in this room, we will have a workshop with a couple of topics. One of those topics is the modifications of the employee handbook to deal with recovering training costs for employees that leave the city early. And the second involves a discussion of how we maintain our curb lines and how Public Works has tried to do that in the past and some options for the future. So we've got some more meeting to go after we get done with the regular agenda.
Thank you, Tony. This is the time we open the floor for comments that anyone may have on any particular topic. We had the arrival just a moment ago of a Girl Scout troop, which I had the pleasure of addressing prior to this meeting, and I tried to explain some of the things we do, and as I tried to explain, some of these are very formal and rigid. I sounded very formal and rigid, and this is what it's like in real life, girls, how we do it. Why don't you stand and let us recognize you, and your scout leader may give us your troop number and where you're from, and
we are Troop 20617. We're right here in Hamlin County. We do service some girls that are in Jeff County, Granger County, all over, so ranging from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade.
Well, we welcome you to the city council meeting, and I can tell you that this group asks some tough questions, tougher questions than Robert Moore asks sometimes. So thank you for that, and welcome to our meeting. And you may be seated, and we thank you.
Thank you.
This is the time we open the floor for comments on any particular topic that needs to come before the council. If you wish to be heard, you have 3 minutes. Please identify yourself with your name and address, and the floor is now open.
My name is Linda Noe, 2343 Joe Stevens Road. I'd like to again ask that you televise your meetings. The county has been doing that for over 15 years. You have the capability, you have the personnel, and it would be a tremendous service to the people of Morristown. I know several parents who would love to see what happened tonight in your recognition of those Girl Scouts and in your other recognitions that you have, as well as the conduct of city business. So let's not hide it just right here. Let's put it out where everybody can see it. You have FiberNet, you have the capability. Like I said, the county has been doing it for 15 years. Let's do it.
Anyone else? Hearing none, we will close this portion of the meeting, and we go to comments from the mayor and council members. I would like to address a couple of things. This Thursday night, we have the annual Hall of Fame banquet for our Department of Parks and Recreation. It's a nice event that awards and recognizes volunteers. An important part to certainly Parks and Recreation and other departments, but it'll be a nice event. It's over here across the street at First Methodist Church. Council members, I would encourage that we all attend that. And there'll be 3 members inducted into the Hall of Fame. The guest speaker is Conridge Holloway, and we remember who he is, and sometimes wish we still had him on Saturdays at Neyland Stadium. So I would encourage all of us to attend that meeting. Also on Thursday, there will be a ribbon cutting and an expansion announcement of industry with Petoskey Plastics. I don't mention these from this podium very often, but I'm mentioning Petoskey for the fact that this plastic company has been recycling a long time. They were recycling when recycling wasn't cool. And this is a nice program that they have, and they're enlarging their employment staff. So at 10 o'clock Thursday at the East Tennessee Progress Center is where that will take place, and I would encourage you to attend for that. I'd also like to amen what Tony said about the this weekend where we had traffic signals out, and the immediate response from our traffic control folks, Paul Brown and DPW from the police department, and their skills at managing traffic. I spent Saturday morning a couple of hours helping manage traffic for a road race, and that was 1 corner, 1 stop, 7:30 in the morning. I can imagine what traffic managing is involved when traffic lights are out in the middle of a Thursday afternoon and Friday morning. So guys, I'm proud of you for that, and for Steve Peoples and Matthew as well. Thank you for that. We hear that request from the lady who spoke about televised. We have absolutely no request for that. That is the only request we have. Of course, these council meetings are not hidden. They are public and advertised. So those are my comments, and any other council member wishes to address any topic.
Mayor, working with Debbie, the Boys and Girls Club Men and Women of Distinction would like to come back to City Center again on December the 4th. That's our first meeting in December. And work up, as Debbie has coordinated so nicely, tour the building, and then they'll attend the city council meeting after that, after they've gone through all the departments. This Saturday is an exciting day in the life of the Boys and Girls Club here in Morristown, celebrating 60 years. And our own Dr. Rooney, who was a council member here for many years, is the only remaining living founder of the Boys and Girls Club. And as the headline said, Bob, and so well, he's been there since day one, and he continues to be a strong supporter of the Boys and Girls Club. And just as an aside for Dr. Rooney, his troop has probably produced more Eagle Scouts than any other scout troop in Morristown there. So if you're available on Saturday, anytime between 11 and 2, stop by the Boys and Girls Club and see what's going on. It's a really happening place. And we have the Jingle Bell Run coming up on Saturday, December the 1st. That's also the day that we're going to light the Christmas tree at the farmer's market. But I've given Debbie a flyer, give one to Craig. She has one for you. If the city would like to work up a team, you can walk or you can run on December the 1st. And it's to raise money to go to buy equipment at the hospital for the cancer center and other things that are necessary at the hospital there. And Tony, would you like to mention to the council about the District 1 TML meeting?
Yes, we'll be hosting the District 1 meeting, and I don't have a calendar in front of me. I don't remember the date, but we'll be at Walter State in the Lyceum. We expect a good turnout. It's December 5th. So that morning, please come out, and we'll have an excellent program about what's coming up in the state legislature and what the TML's doing.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, council, we are going to adjourn briefly, and about 5 seconds later, I'll bang in the meeting of the beer board. We have only one item, then we'll take a brief recess before our work session, so we're well over halfway home. If there are no other items to come before the council, I entertain a motion. We adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned.